Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to the latest episode of Musical Musings, airing every Wednesday at 1 p.m. We broadcast this program to you from Rajamakan University of Technology, Peranakan, and we bring this program to you in two parts. For the first part, I will be introducing a song to you, as well as the artist who performs it. We will talk a little bit about the artist, and then discuss the main themes of the song, like what the song is all about. Then we will go ahead and listen to the song. And for the second part of the program, we will analyze the lyrics. The lyrics are the words to the song. And because this is an English language program airing here in Thailand, we will focus on anything that may be difficult to understand. Vocabulary, slang, idioms, which are sayings, words that we use that don't mean what they say. Anything like that. That's what will be the focus when we take a look at the lyrics. Then we will have the news and the latest updates from the university as usual.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome everyone. I am Gary Gray and I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an American English teacher here at Rajamakan University of Technology, Peranakan. So for today's Musical Musings episode, we are going to be taking a look at the song Gravedigger by Dave Matthews. Actually, it's by the Dave Matthews Band. Dave Matthews is their lead singer, but the band is named after him, so it's by the Dave Matthews Band. Now let's talk a little bit about Dave Matthews. He's a little bit weird to talk about, like, what nationality he's from or where he's from. It's a lot like the Bee Gees, who we have done on this program before. The Bee Gees are considered an Australian band, but they weren't born there. They were actually born in the UK, but their family moved to Australia when they were very young. So they grew up in Australia. They did a lot of their stuff there. They did eventually move to the UK, but actually when their little brother was trying to get into the music industry, Andy Gibb, he actually went back to Australia to kind of get his start because that's where they originally became famous. And so he thought he would have more luck back in Australia getting his career started. And in fact, he did. He also became very famous. The Bee Gees means the brothers Gibb, and it's three of the brothers. And then their youngest brother, really they didn't leave him out. He was just too young because they started when they were already quite young. So they started really young, and so their little brother was just too young to be in the band. They probably would have let him join the band when he was old enough, because it's not like they had differences or fought or whatever. No, he just decided to do his own thing. So he went back to Australia to get his career started. So with Dave Matthews, it's something similar to that. So he is born in South Africa, but he's considered an American artist. He's an American citizen. And even though he technically lived in South Africa when he was growing up, he moved around a lot, including living in the U.S. for a period of time. So he moved around a lot, living in the U.S., the United Kingdom, as well as South Africa. So he's born in South Africa, but he's generally viewed as being American. And in fact, he formed his band in America. So he was born in 1967. So this is one of the younger artists we're doing. I know that sounds quite old, right? Born in 1967. That's older than me, your host, and I'm kind of old. So I'm not too old, but I'm kind of old. He's older than I am. But as you know, we do a lot of older bands, artists, singers. We do a lot of older ones on this show. So he's actually fairly young compared to most of the artists we do. He would be about, what would that make him now? He would be about 57 now, maybe 58 if he's had his birthday already. It's as we air this, it is February of 2025, so he probably has not had his birthday. I don't know what month his birthday's in, but just odds are he probably hasn't had his birthday. So he's about 57 now. So he's not that old, but like I said, we usually do older artists here. So he's actually quite young compared to a lot of the artists we do. But as I mentioned, he actually started his band in Virginia. They started in 1991 in Virginia, and it's hard to say like when he's continued with the band, because he still is with the band. They still perform. They're still around today. They are continuing. But after about 2003, he started doing other things. So he's really viewed as having been, it's just the band, the Dave Matthews Band, from 1991 to about 2003. And like I said, they do still perform to this day. They're still recording. I think that they don't come out with albums that often anymore because, again, he's doing other things as well. I think their last album is, I want to say 2023, and I believe they came out with one in 2016 as well. So you can see they're kind of infrequent. We've talked about bands when they're really popular, they'll come out with an album like every year. So this is a lot of space between some of these albums. But again, they haven't broken up. They're still together. It's just that after 2003, Dave Matthews has started doing a lot of other things. In fact, he actually started doing some of those before 2003, starting in around 2000. But he really started doing those other things a lot more after 2003. He's actually done some acting, and not a bad actor. Nothing famous that you would probably know him from, but they're not all just small little tiny parts here or there. He's done some real acting, so he's a pretty good actor. So he's done some acting, and he's also performed with some other musicians. He's teamed up with some other musicians to do some music. So he's been doing a lot of different things since 2003. Like I said, really since 2000, but it was less between 2000 and 2003. So the focus was still on the Dave Matthews Band from 2000 to 2003. So it's really after 2003 that there's really been less with the Dave Matthews Band. But again, they've not broken up. They're still together. And their success has been very weird also, because they're an extremely popular band. But it's like they have a lot of great songs, but not a lot of really great songs. I'll give you an example of that. They have had 7 albums in a row hit number 1 when they were released. That's how popular they are. 7 albums in a row. Boom, number 1. But you can't find one song on any of those albums that even got into the top 10 as far as the charts in the U.S. I mentioned this before. We use the U.S. charts because that's the most popular. It's not just because I'm American. It's the most popular, and that's where the most English-speaking people live. So that's kind of where the focus is when an English-speaking band is trying to become popular. The focus is usually on the U.S. That's why a lot of U.K. bands will do a lot of touring in America. A lot of Australian bands will do a lot of touring in America because that's where the people are. So that's where you get famous. But not one. They have not one hit that got to number 1. They've also had, I have to actually look at my notes because I don't remember how many there were, but they had, I I thought I took a note of this. I don't seem to have this in my notes, but they have several songs. 9. I did put it in my notes there. Okay, they have 9 songs that have made the top 100. Sorry, the top 100. They have 9 songs that have been in the top 100 in the U.S. But only one of those even reached the top 20. And again, none in the top 10. None. Zero. So it's a really weird success story. A lot of great songs. If they didn't, we probably wouldn't be doing them today. Most of the bands we do are pretty popular bands. So they were very popular. Number one album after number one album after number one album, 7 times in a row. Their albums hit number one. Not a single song even got close to number one. So it's a weird band. And a lot of their songs did get on the charts. Like I said, 9 in the top 100. So a lot of good songs. And they have a lot of good songs that didn't even get into the top 100. For example, today's song that we're doing, Gravedigger. So let's talk about that song a little bit. So Gravedigger never even got in the top 100. So why did I pick it? Well, first of all, it's my favorite song by them, but it's still a very good song. They do have charts that are like subcategories, like the top R&B music, the top adult contemporary music, the top whatever. They have all these different categories as well. And in those categories, this song actually did make 2 of those lists. And it wasn't very high on the list, but it wasn't like if they list the top 100, it was down low. No, it was solidly on those lists. And it also won a Grammy Award. So clearly, pretty good song. Even though it never even hit the top 100. Never hit the top 100. So, very interesting song. And it comes from the album Some Devil, which came out in 2003. So the Grammy Award it won would have been the next year. It won the Grammy Award in 2004. But it came out in 2003. I mentioned before, we usually do older music. You can see for us on this program, that's very recent. Lately we've done a couple more recent pieces of music, but anything after 2000 is pretty rare for this program. We're on, I don't know, about our 85th episode. It's week 95 of the program, but over the course of those, that's almost 2 years now. Over the course of those 2 years, we've missed a few episodes here and there, a few weeks here and there. So we've probably had about 85 episodes. I would say probably maybe 5 songs are after 2000. I do know we have had a couple before, including one very recently. But very few songs are this recent. So 2003. All right, so what is this song about? We've done a lot of these weird songs where they seem sad, but they're not meant to be sad. This is another one like that. It seems like a really sad song. Gravedigger. Okay, so first of all, you may not know what that even means. It depends on what sort of rituals a culture has. So in most Western cultures, when someone dies, they are buried in the ground. And there's usually a headstone, which is a big piece of stone that has some writing on it, identifying who it was and when they lived, things like that. Being cremated, that's when they burn your body so you have some ashes. That's becoming more and more popular. In fact, my brother passed away a few years ago, and he was cremated. So that's becoming more popular. But traditionally, the body is buried. And the hole that they get buried in is called a grave. So a gravedigger is the person that digs that hole, digs that grave. That's what a gravedigger is. So you can see that this seems like a very morbid, that means like about death, sad, kind of not a happy song. You can see this doesn't seem like a very happy song, right? Gravedigger. And then you listen to the song, and it's kind of slow and mellow, so it even seems kind of sad. It's not really intended to be sad at all, actually. It is more of a celebration of life, trying to remember these people. So the idea of the song, and you'll see in the lyrics when we get to that it doesn't always follow this, but this was the concept that Dave Matthews had when he was writing it. The idea of the song is that it's like someone walking through a graveyard and looking at the stones that have the person's information on them. So and as he goes through this song, you'll see that he's kind of remembering their lives. So it's like a song of remembrance. You're celebrating these people's lives. So it's actually supposed to be a happy song about remembering people that have passed, making sure we don't forget them. It's very respectful. It's a very nice song, actually, even though it seems sad. It's actually a very nice song. And what's interesting is in this song, at least some of the people, maybe all of them, I tried to do a little research. I couldn't find all of them, like the last one. There's a little kid mentioned in the song, Mikey Carson. I couldn't find information about him. There's a couple other people mentioned, though, and at least the first one I know, his name is Cyrus Jones. He gets mentioned in this song, so he mentions specific people in this song. And I can tell you that at least with Cyrus Jones, and maybe all three of the people mentioned, I think there's 3 mentioned here, maybe all 3 of them, actually there's 4. There's 4. So maybe all 4. Maybe all 4 people are real people, which I think makes the song even more special, because it's not just a song about remembering people, but he's actually remembering real people. First person he mentions is Cyrus Jones, who he mentions lived to 103 from 1810 to 1913. That is a real person. Cyrus Jones actually lived from 1810 to 1913. So so I don't know if he actually went through a cemetery. He may have. He may have gone through the cemetery, or maybe multiple cemeteries, and took note of certain people. This guy really old, so maybe that's why he took note of this person, Cyrus Jones. And later in the song, there's a little kid, so a little kid dying young is pretty sad, so he took note of that kid. Again, I don't even know if the kid's real. I'm not sure about that one. But he could be, because I do know that Cyrus Jones is real. Okay, so this song is really a celebration and a remembrance of life. It's actually supposed to be a happy song. Okay, so let's get to the song. As always, for those of you joining us on YouTube, you know we cannot embed the video in here. So we'll give you a link in the upper right-hand corner. Please click on the link to go watch the video for this song. And then you can just jump back here to watch the second part of our program as we go through the lyrics. And everyone else, if you're listening by radio or streaming, you should be able to listen just fine. Okay, let's get to the song.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Well, welcome back. All right, so that is a song about life. Just celebrating different people's lives. Okay, so let's just get right to the lyrics. Most of them are going to be pretty easy to understand, although I may have to explain a few things to you as far as culture, as well as any of the difficult words or things like that. Okay, so we start out with the person I mentioned before. It starts right out with Cyrus Jones. Cyrus Jones, 1810 to 1913. He made his great-grandchildren believe he could live to 103. 103 is forever when you're just a little kid, so Cyrus Jones lived forever. Okay. Obviously, Cyrus Jones did not live forever. He lived to 103. So there's no difficult words, though, in that whole first verse. So what does that mean? Okay, it says 103 is forever when you're just a little kid. Okay, so think about a little kid. A lot of times a little kid, if you say you're 30 years old, they'll say, oh my God, you're so old. They'll think 30 is old. So it's the perception, it's the way that a little kid would look at him. So Cyrus lived and lived and lived and lived and lived for over 100 years. To a little kid, that seems like forever. That's what we're saying. So when you're just a little kid, so Cyrus Jones lived forever. That's the way the little kids would see him. So again, this is a celebration of life. As I mentioned before, Cyrus Jones is a real person. So we're remembering Cyrus Jones here. Okay, then we get to the chorus. Gravedigger, when you dig my grave, could you make it shallow so that I can feel the rain? Gravedigger. Okay, any difficult words here? Maybe some of you may not know the word shallow. Shallow means when if you're digging a hole, don't go too deep. Don't go too deep. I'll give you another example of what shallow would mean. If you go to a swimming pool, sometimes swimming pools have one end where the water is like not so deep, and then another end where the water is a lot deeper. So they tell you not to dive on this side, because if you dive in, you might hit your head, break your neck, you might hurt yourself. That's shallow. So it's not deep. So what this is saying in the chorus here is he wants his body to be close to the surface of the ground. Because again, remember, in Western culture, you're burying dead people. Because he wants to be able to feel the rain. So again, that's about feeling like you're still alive. Obviously, he's dead. He's not going to feel the rain. We also don't bury the body out in the open like that. It's usually in a box, so he's not really going to feel the rain. It's just an idea. It's just an idea. Again, it's about living. He wants to be able to feel like he's still alive, even when he's not. So bury him shallow so he can feel the rain. He wants to be able to still be in this world, even when he's gone. Okay, second verse. Muriel Stonewall, 1903 to 1954. She lost both of her babies in the Second Great War. Now you should never have to watch as your only children lowered in the ground. I mean, you should never have to bury your own babies. Okay, so a couple things here. It's sort of slang. I mean, it's not really slang. She had these two children as babies, but we're not actually talking about babies being buried. It says she lost both of her babies in the Second Great War. When we say you lose someone, it usually means, it's usually a nice way, a polite way of saying that they died. So when we say she lost both of her babies in the Second Great War, it means that both of her sons died in World War II. The Second Great War is World War II. And you can even do the math on here, and the time would make sense. So if Muriel Stonewall was born in 1903, because she's not that old, right? 1903 to 1954. So she's only 51 years old. Both of her sons died? Really? Yeah, It would seem like, are they old enough to go to war and then both be dead? Yeah, there's enough time in there. As long as she's older than about 36. Back in those days, a lot of times people would start their families younger, so she might have been as young as 17, 18, 19 when she had her first kids. Even if she was older, let's say she was 25. So she would have had her kids in 1928. Okay, that is a little old, because then by the time World War II was over, if she had them in 28, they would have only been about 17. So they wouldn't have been really old enough to fight in World War II. But, as I said, that's pretty late. That's pretty late for her to have them if we said she had them at the age of 25. Like I said, people usually started their families a little younger back then. So probably she had them when she was, well, there were two of them, assuming they weren't twins. Maybe she had one in 1920, one in 1922. Who knows? We don't have the details here. But you can see that the math works out. And why is that important? Because I'll bet you this is also a real person. So we're celebrating this real person. We're kind of feeling sorry for her because she lost both of her kids. And it says, your only children lowered in the ground. So apparently these are the only kids she had. She had two kids, she had two sons, and they both died in World War II. And this is really a big deal kind of in Western culture, and it may be even in Eastern culture, because I mean, the whole idea is just sad no matter what. But about a parent having their own child die. A child is expected to lose their parent eventually because their parents are older than them, right? So eventually your parents are going to die. My father has passed away. He passed away about 5 years ago now. 4.5, 5 years ago. My mother is still alive. She's old, but she's still alive. That's kind of what you expect. That's normal life. So if your own child dies, like for my mother, my brother's already passed away. He passed away about 3 years ago. So my mother had to see her son die. That's usually a very tragic thing. So that's what that's about. And the reason I went through the math there with World War II is because, again, I'm betting this is a real person. Because I know that Cyrus Jones is. So Muriel Stonewall is probably also a real person. Okay, then we get the chorus again. It's the same. And then we get what's called a bridge. It's a little separate section. And it's ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies, ashes to ashes, we all fall down. That doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Why is that in here? Okay. That's not it's part of the song, but it's not really part of the song. What I mean is that just comes from a old nursery rhyme. It's like a children's song. What's kind of cool is they use the actual tune of the song in here. They're able to kind of match it with the tune of the main song. They have to probably change the key a little bit and change a few notes in case it's in a minor key or whatever. They have to adjust it a little bit, but that's the tune they use. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. That's how it's sung normally. And it's sung a little slower and a little bit in a different key, so it sounds a little different, but they're basically singing the same tune. It is a little bit weird that it's a nursery rhyme, because a nursery rhyme means a song for little kids. And it is about death, which is why it's in this song. So it is about death. And I believe, I didn't look this up, so I'm going on memory, because I heard what that nursery rhyme is about a long time ago, so I may be wrong, but I believe it's about the Black Plague back hundreds of years ago that killed a lot of people. And so we all fall down. In other words, they all died. So that's what that's about. So we get that little section, Then we get the chorus again. And then we get the third verse, which is Little Mikey Carson, 67 to 75. Now that means 1967 to 1975. Sometimes we shorten the years like that. We used to do it all the time. We do it a little less ever since 2000 because now you have to know whether we're talking about 1900 something or 2000 something. Usually you can tell by what the last two numbers are. Like if I said this song came out in '03, you're not going to think I'm saying 1903, right? So it's 2003. But before 2000, we would do that all the time. We'd just shorten it to 2 digits. So 67 to 75 is 1967 to 1975. He rode his bike like the devil until the day he died. When he grows up, he wants to be Mr. Vertigo on the Flying Trapeze, 1940 to 1992. Okay, so this, for a native English speaker, this verse is perfectly easily understood. But there are a few things in here that could really confuse someone who's not a native English speaker. First of all, he rode his bike like the devil. What does that mean? The devil doesn't ride a bike. What does it mean he rode his bike like the devil? It's a phrase we use. When we say like the devil, it just means like crazy, like mad. So he probably rode his bike all the time. He rode it really fast, rode it all over the place. So he was crazy about riding his bike. So little Mikey Carson loved riding his bike, and he'd ride it fast as he could, ride it all over the place. Okay, when he grows up, he wants to be Mr. Vertigo. The heck does that mean? Mr. Vertigo? That's not a real name. No, it's not. It's a name for someone performing in a circus. It's their circus name. The Flying Trapeze. That's... Some of you may not even be familiar with this because I don't even know how much they still do this at the circus, and I don't know how much familiarity you have with the circus. But basically, there's a bar hanging from 2 ropes, which are really high up, and a person is swinging on them, and it's really high above the ground, so it's very dangerous. And sometimes there'll be 2 people swinging on them, and they'll flip off them, and one will catch the other, and things like that. They do these crazy stunts. It's called acrobatics. They do these crazy acrobatic stunts. And vertigo is when you get dizzy. And it can especially happen to people if they're like up high and looking down. It actually happens to me sometimes, which is really weird because I'm not really afraid of heights. In fact, I just went somewhere where I was up really high. And it's really kind of all in your head because I kind of think about it and then I start to get dizzy. If I would not do that, I wouldn't get dizzy. but I do that sometimes. I'll start thinking about it and then I start getting dizzy. Happened to me just very recently. I was standing high on a hill, almost like a mountain. It was so high. And it drops down pretty steep. See, when you look over the hill, you can see all the way down. And so I'm standing there and I start getting dizzy. That's what vertigo is. So they call him Mr. Vertigo because he's flying high in the air on the trapeze. That's what that's called. So Mr. Vertigo on the flying trapeze. And then it says 1940 to 1992. What does that mean? 1940 to 1992. That is the dates for Mr. Vertigo. Again, I would bet he's a real person. I'm not familiar with him. But again, the dates would line up, right? So 1940 to 1992. So little Mikey Carson was born in 67. So Mr. Vertigo is going to be about 27 when Mikey Carson's born. Okay? So you figure Mikey Carson, when does he start watching this guy and get interested in this guy? Because it says he wants to be him, right? When he grows up, he wants to be Mr. Vertigo. So Mikey Carson's going to probably be about 5, 6, 7, because he died when he's 8. So that'll be, add 5 years to Mr. Vertigo. He was 27 when Mikey Carson was born, so he's going to be 32, 33, 34, 35. That's a reasonable age for someone to be a trapeze artist in the circus. Probably start in your 20s. you'll do it for 10 or 20 years. And then as you get older, maybe it's a little, your body starts to break down a little bit. You may not be able to do it when you're kind of in your 50s, maybe even in your 40s, depending on your body, although they're probably in pretty good shape, so they can probably do it up until 50. So he's in his early to mid-30s. So again, dates line up, which means these could be real people. Again, I'm not sure if they are. The only one I could actually find was Cyrus Jones, and I'll be honest, I didn't even look up Mr. Vertigo. At that point, I couldn't find Mikey Carson, so I was just like, okay, whatever. We know some of them are real. So again, these are probably real people. So we're celebrating their lives. Celebrating Mikey Carson, Mr. Vertigo. All right, and then we just do the chorus again, and it gets repeated a couple times, and that is the end of the song. All right, so that is Gravedigger by the Dave Matthews Band. Sometimes we will just say by Dave Matthews because he's their lead singer, and the band is named after him. But the band is technically the Dave Matthews Band. Okay, so as we finish up the episode, one thing I always do every week is I like to tell you other good songs from the band that you should listen to. This is a weird one because, as I said at the beginning, in part one when we were talking about the band, they have a lot of kind of big hits, but no like major hits. So there's no song where I can say, you really have to listen to this one. So what I'm going to tell you is all of the songs that were above number 50 on the top 100 in America. Remember, they had 9 that were in the top 100. So 6 of them, sorry, I had to count that on my list here. I had to take notes on these. So I had to look at my notes there. There's 6. 6 of those 9 got into the top 50, which again is also a little bit weird again, because you can see most of them got in the top half. It's really weird, their popularity, like really extraordinarily popular as a band, and their songs, they got really popular, but just couldn't get all the way there. No number ones, nothing in the top 10, only 1 in the top 20, but most of those 9, 6 of them, got above 50, were in the top half. The list, remember, is the top 100, so they list 100 of them. Okay, so these are the 6 that got into the top 50. American Baby, The Space Between, Crush, I'm Alive, Funny the Way It Is, and Where Are You Going? Now, I have to be honest, I'm not a big Dave Matthews fan. Actually, I kind of like his music every time I hear it. But because I'm not a big fan of his, I actually don't even know most of these songs. So that's another reason it's hard for me to tell you which ones to listen to. I can tell you that I'm quite familiar with the song Crush, and I think that's quite good. I'm also familiar with I'm Alive. I think that's pretty good. But those are the top 6 songs by him. Again, doesn't mean they're his best songs. We did Gravedigger today. That's my favorite song by him. It's not even in the top 100. As I told you before, it did win a Grammy, and it was on made some other lists, so still very popular, but not popular enough to even get into the top 100. So good song, popular song, not that popular. And that's my favorite song. So just go ahead and check them out. A lot of very good songs. Again, the top 6 were American Baby, The Space Between, Crush, I'm Alive, Funny the Way It Is, and Where Are You Going? Okay. Thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. Please stay with us and make sure you tune back in next week for another great song. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.
Musical musings, musical